looking inwards, I think, is the first step in being a better person. And you got to look inwards and be really honest about what you see. So self-judgment, whether it be negative, positive, I just think it's important to like look in yourself and truly like think about, how are my actions treating other people in the world? How am I thinking about people? You know, in my talk, I talked about how the language we use is important. And like literally, Kevin was an addict for 7 years. I just did it again. I called him an addict. So I have to look very closely at my behavior that I, for 7 years, didn't use the right language. And so I didn't, that's a part of me becoming more empathetic, is really now like looking at where I've been in order to be better. I say to my kids a lot, you can't do better until you know better. So now I know you can't do better until you know better. So now I know what words are better to use. So now I can be better. But I wouldn't get to that place unless I had like looked inward and admitted that I had done some like not great stuff in the past. Yeah, so how do we teach children empathy, and how do I teach my kids specifically empathy? I think it really starts with helping kids label feelings. So helping them understand like what mad looks like, and what sad looks like, and what frightened looks like. So if they can recognize it in their self and articulate it, and then they can recognize it in a friend and see like, oh, you know, so-and-so is sad. What do I feel? What helps me when I feel sad? Maybe I can do that for my friend. So often with my kids, like if one of their friends is crying or upset, I always say like, well, you know, my oldest daughter's name was Brooklyn. I'll say, Brooklyn, what do we do for a friend when they're sad? And she'll say, oh, we can give them a hug. And I say, okay, we'll go, you know, do you want to give them a hug? Like, does that make you feel better when you're sad? So really helping them like understand their own feelings, and then see those feelings in someone else and respond accordingly. And in specific relation to having empathy towards people who are struggling with substance use, with my kids, I've been honest with them from the day that Kevin died, how he died, and that he was struggling with addiction. You know, it's in like kid-appropriate terms, but they know that Daddy had an illness that made his brain tell him to take drugs, and he took too many, and they made his body stop working. So I just really seize every opportunity to talk about addiction and people who are struggling with substance use with my kids, so they can see it through the lens of empathy. And you know, if we're driving in the car, and there was a time recently we were driving, and on CBC there was a story about safe injection sites in the city, and so I didn't change the channel, and my oldest daughter was listening, and I could tell that she was listening, and I just said, you know, they're talking about people that were like Daddy, and they're talking, and she said, oh, what's the place they're talking about? So I talked about how it's a place that people like Daddy can go and be safe and get help. So I think just being open and honest with them builds their empathy, and really helping them understand feelings, to see that in others and like respond accordingly. My secret identity, well, it's not so secret, but it's Wonder Woman, because I've always loved Wonder Woman like for years, but since my husband has died and I am now parenting 2 young children alone, I'm the sole breadwinner, I run our household, I do a lot. Well, I do all this while I'm grieving, while parenting my grieving kids, doing activist work about opioid overdose. So I have a lot going on. So I literally feel like I'm Wonder Woman. So much so that last Halloween, because Kevin used to be the one that would dress up and take the kids out, and I would stay home and hand out the candy, but now that he's dead, I have to do both roles. So we leave a bowl of candy on the porch, and I take the kids out trick-or-treating, so now I have to get dressed up. So last year, I invested in a Wonder Woman costume. So I think I will dress up as Wonder Woman for every Halloween going forward, because that is my secret identity.